This is Fam Electric Ghost, and we're live on the air with Miranda Bailey, your award-winning indie film producer, and you're the CEO of Cold Iron Pictures. You've produced over 20 films, and so we want to get to the heart of your story. But welcome to the Fam Electric Ghost program today. How you doing?
Thanks. Good. Actually, it's not such a bad day today, so that's pretty good. January was a tough one.
It was hard. You had a lot of work.
Well, there are fires in LA and, lots of stuff going on that was difficult for people.
Mm-hmm.
January felt like a year.
So you're like I said, the CEO of Cold Iron Pictures. You've got a bunch of projects we want to talk about tonight. And one of the things I wanted to kind of give people like a background of how you got into the entertainment business, maybe like the elevator pitch version. But like, how do you want to tell that story tonight before you go into some of your new projects?
Yeah, if it's a long elevator, if it's an elevator up to the top, I can tell that how I got into it. Yeah. So is that where I should start? So I'm lucky, I think, that I knew since I was 8 years old what I wanted to be when I grew up. Because my father was a stockbroker before I was born. And one of his best friends was another stockbroker named Brian Dennehy, who was a pretty famous actor who passed 2020. And so he became a huge Broadway star, and he's kind of a second father to me, really. And I really looked up to him, and I got to see him win a Tony and everything. And I went to see him make one of his first movies when I was 8. I think I was 8, maybe I was younger, called Little Miss Marker with Walter Matthau.
Oh, I think
I just remember it was such a magical moment because the studio, which I now know is a studio, it seemed like a very ugly box to me, but the studio felt like a giant room with like a dollhouse because of the set. And I was a big dollhouse girl, and like the actors were like live dolls.
So
the actress was, the lead actress in Little Miss Marker was my age. So it was like, oh, I this is what I want to do the rest of my life.
See the roadmap in front of you. Like it's right in front of you. It's all laid out.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I lived in Vail, Colorado, and my dad's plan was for me to be an Olympic skier. I broke my tooth, so you get a live version of my broken tooth, but I'll get it fixed before the Spirit Awards in a couple of days. So I didn't really have any way of acting other than like school plays and whatnot in Vail, Colorado. And so I was a ski racer, and I was at the Junior Olympics a couple of times. But then when I went to college, I was kind of free of that burden of having to, be a sports athlete professionally.
Well, it's really your father's dream, not your dream, right?
Yeah. Yes, but I didn't know that really until, when I made the movie Being Frank with Jim Gaffigan, I directed it. I'm one of the characters I had be like me in the sense that, well, all the characters are like me, but one of them was saying, he was a football player, but he didn't really know if he really liked football. He just knew that was something he could do with his dad. So, yes, I do now as an adult realize that. But so I studied acting and directing at theater in Skidmore College, got a Bachelor of Science in it. And I found myself writing and directing and acting and producing plays and everything from high school to then. Then I moved to Los Angeles and was an actress. And I was an actress in some things that were not great material, still super fun, but not great material. I had a pretty uncomfortable Me Too experience in one of the movies that I did, and decided to have more control over the stories that I was being a part of telling, which I guess became producing movies. So that's kind of how it started. And I started a production company with 4 other people, 3 friends. One was a director, 2 were producers. I was an actor. And we made our first movie for like $1. called Dead and Breakfast, just because we had a free location and we had a bunch of friends who were like semi-famous, and it did really well. And then kind of from there, we were able to do more and more. And then slowly, as you grow and you have companies, there's breakups. The 4 became, I think, 3, and then the 3 became 2, and then the 2 became 1, which is me.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I became a producer, really.
Well, that's very empowering because, like, a lot of times people have a vision and they don't know how to execute, but you went to like the actual foundational structure of being in your field is, being a producer, I would think, is where
Yeah.
you really have the control over the project. Singer-songwriters, we want control over our song or our album, our the way we're presented, and we don't want the label to control what we want to do. So a lot of it's gone indie. But like
Yeah.
it's the same kind of thing where you want to be more in charge of what you find, in the art that made you want to be in the art instead of being a victim of the art.
Yeah, I definitely realized, especially with acting, that I really didn't care about the size of the role as much as the power of the story.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I didn't enjoy being in Port Charles or being in, Beyond Belief, Fact or Fiction, Beyond Belief, or, some B movies. I did enjoy it, but I wanted to, I don't know, I wanted to make something more interesting. And
More
also,
impact.
I love being on set. Like, I love being on set. And as an actor, you're very rarely on set, like, unless you've already been cast. Like, your job as an actor is to get the job. So,
Mm-hmm.
whereas if you're a producer, you can be on set all the time. I felt the same way about the theater. I lived in the theater. I loved the theater. I was a stage manager also. Like, just that's the atmosphere that felt like home to me. And so sets feel like home to me.
Well, it seems like you want to see the whole project. You don't want to be a part of the project.
I
You
mean,
you have
sometimes
to.
I want to be just a part of the project, but I guess, um, I don't know. It'd be nice to just be one part. I think now that I've produced so many movies, I'm kind of tired. A little
But
bit
as a
like,
producer, you get to see
yeah,
the whole the holistic vision, and maybe you don't have the narrow focus that maybe certain roles in the industry are very narrow focus to whatever your piece is. But like if you're a producer, a music
yeah,
producer, you're looking at the whole album. You're looking at
totally.
You're looking at the whole all the different pieces of it, everything that made it up. And so you're looking at, the lighting, the writers, the storyboard, the budgets, like you're getting really into it, right? You're dealing with all the aspects.
Yeah. I mean, what's really fun to me about making movies, whichever, if you're a director or producer, I think you get to see the whole process, is there's so many stages, right? So there's concept to development to pre-production, production, and the movie's changing in every stage. And then editing, changing again. And then there's the whole version of, well, where do you premiere it? Is it at a festival? And then how do you sell it? And then
Mhm.
what territories do you sell? So the commerce part of it is great for like my left brain, and the creative part of it is great for my right brain.
So your left brain, right brain. Yeah, you're somebody that wants to see the whole thing. Like
Well,
you're
it's very
yeah,
fulfilling.
like an engineer, they want to know the guts of the system. They want to know like the inputs, the outputs, downstream, upstream, everything. Like,
Yeah.
I work as a software guy in design of big systems. That's my day job. And we look at the foundational elements, the upstream, downstream. We're talking to all kinds of people. And it's like, just from the idea, from the use case to actually selling it, right? To turn it into a service, turn it into a product. So we got it from the idea stage to actually, somebody's computer, somebody's system.
Yeah.
So that feels very satisfying when you can see something all the way through. I think maybe
Yeah.
that's
And if it's a good experience, right? And you love what you're doing, like that specific story or that specific app or product, right? If you love what you're doing, then whether it succeeds financially or fails financially really doesn't matter, because you had a life experience that was worthwhile time-wise.
Was the lesson learned, right? They you learn
always lessons learned. But
yeah, I mean, as an artist, right?
Thing is, making money with independent film is definitely. I mean, I don't recommend anybody go into it to make money.
It's an art. Well, you do like every time I talk to a musician, like if they're still playing and they're like my age, they usually started when they were like teenagers or even earlier than that, and they didn't stop because they love it. Now they didn't always. It's not that yeah, you don't stop until you're not here, unless you're playing a different game. Like if you stopped, then you really didn't love it. And I know guys that stopped, their guitar sitting in the basement, they never picked it up again. But
like my guitars that I never picked up, I just bought.
But like when you love it, you do it because you love it. If you have something that doesn't work out, you learn from it. Like it's just like it's the process. It's like that's life. You have ups and downs. You have things that don't work. And I feel it's like a step on a ladder till you get to where you need to be. And like one thing that didn't work can have elements of the thing that's going to be the biggest thing you ever did.
Yeah, and the ladder, unfortunately, there is no top because we're always moving the goalpost, right? It's always another rung.
We're pushing up to the next level. You're going to the next floor.
You're like, I made it. No, I didn't.
But you moved from film into like different like television and I guess the new streaming world that's out there.
Yeah.
So is that a different like approach from the film you were doing?
Oh my gosh. Television is, I mean, I think it took me, and I don't even consider myself in television yet, even though I now have a show on the air, right? That just launched on Tuesday on a channel on an app called Revry, which is free to download.
Revry.
But we made that TV show independently, and we made it like a feature film. So we block shot it. So that said, there were so many stops and starts due to COVID and strikes and so many crazy. I mean, if anything could go wrong on the TV show Unconventional that we were independently taking a risk on and shooting, it went wrong, right? But the product came out incredible and so many amazing friendships were made, which is great. But it was probably one of the hardest projects I've ever done. But I can safely say I've now directed TV episodes. I now have an actual TV series, all 9 episodes that I executive produced from conception to, selling it on, coming every Tuesday on Revry. And I'm really proud of the team that worked on it and the story that we're telling. And I think it's so important. And so many times we could have given up. Like most people, when they got shut down after the first 2 weeks, would have given up. Most people who found out someone was embezzling $40,000 would have given up. Most people whose financier pulled out the day before we're supposed to start our reshoots would have given up. Like so many, and most people with a COVID shutting down everything would have given up, and we didn't give up because we knew that the story that Unconventional was telling about unconventional families was so important, for us to tell. Not for anyone to hear. That's so egotistical, but it was so important for us to tell.
Is this something that you wrote or you picked it up from another writer?
Kit Williamson, actually, who was the creator of a show he made independently as well called Eastsiders, which became very popular on YouTube. And then Netflix picked it up for the 3rd season. He was doing kind of the follow-up to Eastsiders. Eastsiders was about, a bunch of gay people in the east side of LA during their 20s. And so this takes, some gay characters in their 30s trying to navigate through that stage of their life.
Oh, wow.
And trying to have a family and whatnot. And it's super weird and unconventional, and it's hilarious. Like, it's super sexy. I definitely recommend watching the unrated version because there's a lot of curse words and a lot of nudity that are beeped out or blurred out in the not in the rated version. But fortunately, Revry put both next to each other on that.
Well, that's awesome.
And it's free to watch, which is great.
Yeah, this seems today like well, what time period is this boxed in? Like what's the era that it's in?
It's modern day. It's modern day. We shot it during like 2022, I think, or something like that. And then got shut down, shot more in 2023, edited it in 2024, and now it's out. But even just trying to sell it based on how unconventional the show Unconventional is wasn't easy during the period of time where there were protests about gay pride from Target, having to pull stuff down. Like, we had a couple of streamers that we were going to take it to who really loved the show. We hadn't finished the show. We had just kind of had made a teaser and had edited maybe the pilot or something. But who were concerned that half their audience wouldn't, half their subscriber base
wouldn't get it or be upset about it.
And it was definitely not for network, right? Maybe Cinemax or HBO or something like that, Max. But we were really lucky that Revry kind of came along during the same time. So it's kind of like the Criterion Channel for LGBTQ plus films.
Well,
they just have Hairspray. They have great movies that have that their only mandate is that there's LGBTQ characters, right? So that audience is we're not alienating anyone with that audience. We're actually
what you're finding it's like the law of attraction. Like, you put it out in the world, you find your tribe, and because of the way the things they're the media world has different spaces, and there's certain people who want to control all the spaces, and they want to kind of
I want to control it all.
And so it's like but if you want to be able to it should be able to have any art out there, and if you don't like it, then fine, but to me it's like it's not you shouldn't try to shut down somebody else's perspective.
Yeah, I think it just gets really hard when a company goes public and all of a sudden there's shareholders. You have to, I mean, Hollywood has changed immensely since when I got there. It's now owned, there's now stockholder meetings, not just about the studios, but about the streamers that were the ones that were new and breaking through and succeeding. And then all of the studios decided they were going to start apps. And, there's so much change all the time. And I mean, the great thing, I think, about making movies, right, or TV shows, and other people would say this is the worst thing, but I think it's the best, is that it is constantly evolving. I remember when, we had to switch from film to digital, and what a crisis that was, right? For theater owners or for, cinematographers and all this stuff. And I still remember getting in arguments being like, no, I think it'll be a good thing. Like, we won't have to check the gate. We'll be able to do more takes. And watching, the beginning movies like of Soderbergh doing it, or The Anniversary Party, and then how it's evolved to now The Brutalist looks incredible, shot on a new digital camera, right? So there's that evolution. There's nowhere you can really, other than Quentin Tarantino's, movie theater, play a movie on a 35 or a 70. They're very rare.
Yeah, the world it always levels up with tech.
Yeah, I remember the whole everything's going to be 3D. So what doesn't bend breaks, and we're in what a lot of people report is that we're in a crisis. I don't think we're in a crisis. I think we are in a state where we can find a way to creatively, change how we do things, but still do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there's always arguments like in music with all the tech, like even Yeah, I'm an electronic musician, and if you ever go back to the 50s, right, when Robert Moog showed up with his Moog, there were people saying, "Well, that's the end of music." You
Oh
know,
man,
this
rock and roll was the death of music,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Or
but
like
it's like the
what was
idea
that
that you'd
crazy stuff jazz was. So
the idea that you'd have a synthesizer was, like, blasphemous to, like, classical musicians. It's like, that can't be a real instrument. You can't have something with transistors and be an instrument. And so it was this big argument that, they were still there with the AI and a lot of the tools and the DAWs and all the digital stuff you're talking about with the film, digital stuff and music. There are purists today that still say, "Oh, that's not real unless it's a real acoustic instrument." I mean, there's still people
yeah,
having
that's
the
definitely
argument.
not true because it's a full on art form, the mixing and obviously like the whole DJ,
Yeah, error.
thing.
Yeah,
So I have a friend that makes electronic music and he could sell it, but he doesn't. He's just incredibly talented. Um, but I think he feels like he's not a real musician because it isn't noticed quite yet. Those little boards that have like all the
yeah,
squares and the colors.
yeah. I got one.
Yeah, it's so cool. I mean, I can't figure it out to save the life of me. And he can make just the best vibe music for whatever mood you're in.
Well, it's
And
idea of like you can be a producer of music. You can be like a DJ, and you don't tech. I was talking to a guy who was a musician, right? And you're talking about the democratization of music. And I think
mm,
this is also in any field with all this tech. You got the democratization of filmmaking. Because you could
yeah.
have some kid get an iPhone, start making a film, and he could do a film that like 20 years ago you couldn't have done, right?
Mhm.
And he could actually get it out there, and it could be considered art. But
I
there are
don't know if
people
I would
who
call
are
it
gatekeepers,
democratization, though.
huh?
I don't know if I would call it democratization, though, because I think it's still really hard for musicians and for filmmakers to um, get wide enough audiences because of the larger gatekeepers.
Oh, the gatekeepers. Well, I guess just to be able to get your music out the door, it was more of a concept of like you can throw it at the wall, you can actually get it into the world through like the Spotify's of the world. You can get it there. Now you still have to market,
Yeah.
but the gatekeeper used to be able to keep you from even being able to put it out, and that was kind of the
Yeah.
argument. But
And
now
that's
you can,
where YouTube is like so incredible and came in. Like we wouldn't have our show Unconventional if Kit didn't do his like on his own YouTube series that just happened to be a hit in that
mm,
community.
yeah, because it gives you a place. Sometimes you have all these venues now that you can get to through like digital in the web and out there in the ether, and suddenly you could find a tribe. As a musician, I can put something out and somebody in Amsterdam, Netherlands likes it, and then you could actually tour in the Netherlands, and you're like, no, you can't get anybody to listen to you in New Hampshire, but you could be in Norway. So
Yeah.
you never know what can hit if you don't put it out there, you don't know, and so
Yeah, totally. My brother has a band called King Llama that like in Argentina is huge, right? And they just dropped an album here and like no one knows them here. But in
yeah,
Argentina, they fill out, spaces. So it's like check them out actually, King Llama.
I'll have to check it. Yeah, I'm
It's
always looking. I always like to
yes,
talk to
it's
independent
like
people.
if Metallica met Philip Glass and made music.
I just think it's fantastic that we have this era that if you have a vision and you're dedicated to the vision and you're passionate about the vision, we have the tools to be able to actually make it happen. And and
Yes.
and 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 the people could actually get these things out there like a Citizen Kane for this age could come from somebody that you didn't expect it to. Right.
Wait,
You,
hold on. Let me
you,
write that down.
but you could
Gender bended Citizen Kane in high school. Got it.
Yeah, because I mean, Orson Welles, when the people interviewed him, they said he didn't know what you couldn't do with the camera. He didn't know that
Yeah, I love that.
you couldn't do the wipe. The wipe was kind of came from his film is like the idea and the different camera angles. People asked him about it. He said, "Well, I didn't know you couldn't do that." There was this
That's the
interview.
best. Yeah. And I think that's a really good thing to mention about just as artists, like the biggest limitations are the ones we make ourselves, right? So yes, it's possible for anyone to make music. It's possible for anyone to write and publish a book. It's possible for anyone to make a short film. You just have to do it, right?
Yeah, there's still the craft. I still, I'm a child of the '70s, and I still dig like Hendrix and Coltrane and Davis. And like, I still feel that there's a reason that you have like these expert artists, these craftspeople. That this, Joni Mitchell's is like, there's a reason why there's an art, and you can be maybe you can let more people into it, but there's always going to be like the premier artist, the great film director, the great producer that comes up with these really amazing statements, because that's just human beings. There's like some people actually gravitate toward that, and some people, there's different places that people fit in the tapestry. So, I think that this thing is
a vacuum. Like it's so collaborative, music and film. I think writing is probably the only real solo sport art.
Yeah, and writing, I talk to writers all the time. I was talking to some writers about just the craft of it, and how much time it actually takes to get, to a publishing house, to get to be a writer that actually gets pushed by one of the big houses.
And now we can release our own, right? So there are so many possibilities. But then again, it's like you do need money for marketing. But like, you can make money on TikTok. I'm doing a live right now on TikTok about a live podcast happening right now. So, there's lots of, and not that I'm making money on this, but if you want me to, just put some hearts or whatever those things are.
Yes, it's just all these venues, these the TikToks, the SoundClouds, the all these, like, places that people can kind of come from the underground. And I was like, kid, listening to like Lou Reed and Andy Warhol, and listening to the Velvets, and saying, like, that is like, to me, is like what Lou Reed was doing with Andy Warhol. He had these happenings with Warhol, and they had models, actors, painters, everybody on stage, and it was these happenings. And it was happening in San Francisco with like Zappa and the Mother's Invention. They were doing the same type of thing. And I think there's a lot of young kids
on reality
TV. Yeah. I would just hope that people kind of look to that and say, yeah, that's what you can do with art. You can cross genre, cross art, and have this kind of connection between different disciplines in the same space at the same time.
Well, I think that's a good kind of solve for a way for us to bend, in terms of movies. How do we get people to the theaters without creating an event around it, right? So I saw Moonlight with a live orchestra in LA, and it was one of the most incredible experiences I'd ever had, like seeing a movie. And more events like that. Now, granted, that was part of the marketing that was, behind, I believe, I'm not sure who, maybe it was A24, but that was such a great experience. And more of those, I think, can get people out of the house, away from their TV, and go out and experience something where you can also, have art, music, and the film, meet the artists, the filmmakers. That's why film festivals are so important, in my career, because that's a place where we really get to kind of connect within the community of film lovers.
Yeah, that's if you have that, it's like when you put together a group of people with the same kind of mindset, even though different disciplines, it's when you have that whole cadre of, kind of back in the '60s, you forget this feeling like, Woodstock.
Yeah.
The idea, like, you have all these people together, they then that feels like you can cross collaborate, you get different ideas, you're on stage, even like CBGB's back in the day. The fact that you have CBGB's in New York, you had this club where you had the Ramones, Blondie, Television, had all these talking heads. They were all in that same club. It was a very small club, but that scene created a bunch of bands that weren't in the same genre, right? But they kind of it was all cross pollinated, and you have very different type of music in the same scene, and the bands knew each other.
That's
and it's
cool.
that just to me is like that kind of collective. When you have these collective events, then you have these opportunities, like you said, to have a live orchestra at a film. Maybe having live actors playing like a scene live on stage with the film in the back, or there's all kinds of things you could do today to reimagine, to make events, to make happenings, to make people want to participate.
Although this makes me think about Seinfeld, Jerry Seinfeld talking about how, when did money become so important for a job? Like, it used to be how cool was your job, right?
Yeah.
Not how much money did you make. And I think like the difference between the 70s, I mean, I wasn't a grown up then or anything, but like, and say now, is that it has become so much about money that so many of us can get easily jaded to think we can't actually do it, that a happening or make art unless it's going to be somehow financially valuable. And the reality is that does not make art valuable.
Yeah, I mean that's the prime motivator with so many people. Like the number of views you get on the social media is something. Like if it doesn't get 1 million views, is it a failure?
Oh, and I fail every day. I mean, there's probably like 3 people on the 5. Who knows? Yeah, one person, literally.
You get these kids,
I'm failing right now.
So the algorithms are really hard to get with because they change them every day. They're changing these algorithms to make it hard. You think you get it one day, you might get a tiger by the tail, and then the next day they shift it around. It's like, well, what happened?
Well, the reason I'm doing this live right now or whatnot, or like even got on TikTok, was because I was like, oh, well, it's going to be gone. And I want to make sure I have this moment in this time of my life of experiencing this event in culture called TikTok or whatever. So this is only the second live I've ever done. Right. Mm-hmm. I'm like, oh, this is part of the experience of this thing that will be gone in 5 years. Right. It'll be something new. So at least I'll be like, oh, I'm participating in a cultural, mind rotting.
The reel, the clip, the short, that is like
where I love shopping off of TikTok. I really do.
Well, this is like the new method of connection. The younger, I have a 25-year-old, and TikTok is her, like that's where she gets like a lot of this. That's where her scene is.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, it's like that. I'm not so heavy into it, but like her generation, all her friends,
my daughter finds all her recipes on TikTok.
They're so into it. Then that's where people like, well, if that's where the generation is, that's how you connect to them,
Right. And so that's the thing. So eyeballs right now are going on TikTok, not to the movie theater. Right. So, and not to a concert. Maybe concerts different, I think. I mean, I still go to concerts all the time, but so if more people are flipping and have a shorter attention span and are going through and watching things on TikTok, then shouldn't we be creating TV shows that are on TikTok? Right.
Yeah. So yeah. That's where the YouTube show and
how much attention do we have? Like, I mean, I don't watch anything that's not a recipe till the very end, really.
So, yeah, well, I was talking to some writers, and they said, you can't get a 200,000 word book out. You got to be 70,000, 90,000, shorter than that. You got to start putting, bullet points. You have to put pictures. You have to put illustrations. It's like, because like the mind, the world we live in, people want to get into the hook immediately. If you can't get them hooked by the first page as a writer, you're like, you got to get the first 5 pages or they drop it. Like,
yeah, our attention span just doesn't. I mean, even the other day, my husband was like, where's my phone? I was like, I thought you were going to the bathroom. He's like, yeah, I need my phone. I'm like, you don't need your phone to go to the bathroom. But, you do, because otherwise you'd have to sit there and think.
Yeah, I mean, the kind of thing, well, being quiet with yourself, that's like a luxury today. You're like having that, age, like in the 70s, like 4 channels TV. You got to listen to your record. You can't skip it on a playlist. You have to move the needle if you want to skip it. You probably don't move the needle. So you listen to Nat King Cole all the way through. You listen to Karen Carpenter and the Carpenters all the way through. And
you have to hear the whole album. You can't just buy one song.
Yeah. And then you kind of, to me, the deeper songs from an artist kind of tell me who they are. I'm a musician, so I always kind of know an artist not by their single, but by the B-sides and the deeper tracks.
Oh, wow.
Tells me who they are, not just the most obvious thing about them is the single, but the deeper aspects, like when you read a book or you actually get pulled into a movie. It's not just that one action scene; it's the whole thing, right? It's not just the killer ending. It's like it's everything that led up to it. And then people want the cliff notes.
It's like the liner notes that used to be in the album covers. Is the and we don't really have it anymore. It's the director's commentary over the DVD that, again, we don't have anymore. I think DVDs will have a vinyl comeback, personally.
Well, people want tactile. There's a lot of people that want the tactile. My daughter has gone and gotten a turntable because she wants to have vinyl. And a lot of her friends are all like, oh, we want the vinyl. We want to sit down and listen to it all the way through. And I'm like, what, you do?
Yeah.
I didn't think you guys did.
The cycle repeats itself. Yeah. It's pretty crazy. Well, I mean, it's all of art and the way we process it and everything is constantly evolving and changing. And we have to, as artists and as business people, excuse me while I belch from my Diet Coke, have to evolve or quit.
Yeah.
But I mean, bookstores are, everything. The malls are changing. Bookstores are changing. Life is constantly not the same every day. Like, that's the worst part and the best part about being alive is that, who knows what's going to happen.
Well, I think it's an opportunity. Like the people who get scared of the opportunity of the shifting sands is like, it's an opportunity for you to, either get pulled in or pulled out. Are you going to pull it out or are you going to get pulled down? Right. I think a lot of times there was a quote from David Bowie. He said he didn't feel like he was being an artist unless he was treading water a little bit creatively, that he had to go into something. And that's why you saw him kind of morph from Aladdin Sane, the Thin White Duke, all these characters, Ziggy Stardust. He could have stayed in one. He could have stayed Ziggy and made a lot of money. And then he pulled out of that, went to something else. He would shape shift into different things because he would get bored and want to move to the next thing. And as an artist, I think that's really inspiring when people are willing to shift the canon. Like, Dylan, when he went electric, people were like, you're Judas, you're it's done. What are you doing? They're yelling, screaming at him. He's like, no, I don't believe you, is what he yelled back at the crowd. I don't believe you. Yeah. And he kept on playing, even though they were screaming at him and telling him, don't do it. And he still went electric.
Yeah, I like James Mangold's movies, most of them.
But in terms of what you're doing with the TV show, does that mean that you want to stay in that area, or you want to move on to a different area?
No, I mean, a story is a story is a story. So, I would love to do more television, but I would love to do it in a more, way, like at an actual, where where I'm not doing it like an independent film and then hoping to sell it.
Oh yeah, what did you get picked? Actually, part of the.
Yeah, but I did during COVID, or like I had this movie I was directing based off this book that got greenlit by Universal Indie. And we were about to go out to cast. COVID happened and movies died. And I had exercised the option of the book. So I had to quickly pivot to TV. And I personally can't do that because TV is a very tight knit, like you have to have a, incredible showrunner or a writer that's got a deal at the, the studio or the place or whatever, like in order to like get in. So it was even if you have a great piece of IP. So found a Universal state showrunner, and we found a writer together, developed it, and it's really great. And the comedy department thought it was hilarious, but it touched on a little too many topics like classism, sexism, student loan debt. So maybe have it go to the drama department because they like those things. And the drama department loved it, loved the classism, the sexism of it all, but it was a little too funny. So then that died there. And then we went to Lionsgate and took like a year, literally a year, to get a deal done with Lionsgate because I wasn't going to, well, I don't need to get into it on live. But anyway, took like a year for that deal to happen. And then just as we were about to close it, they closed their deal with the blinds deals that they had with the writer and the stage runner they put on it. So then I take it to Netflix with Marty Noxon, who I did the Netflix documentary Split at the Root about with. And then she had a Netflix deal. So we get it to Netflix. That was an awesome process because I got to watch it go, from conception to they pay for an outline, then they pay for a pilot treatment, then they pay for a pilot. And so it's in the pilot stage, like we have a show and Netflix is going, and then the strike happens.
Oh, so the strike hit you there. Oh.
And then halfway through the strike, so that's 50 days, Marty Noxon does not renew her deal at Netflix and moves to E1, which then 20 days later gets bought by Lionsgate. And then, so she's no longer at Netflix, but our project's still being written and owned by Netflix, right? The writer, I knew the strike was over before it was announced because the writer emailed us all the script on a Friday. And I was like, oh, strike's over Monday then. and it was announced and it was great. It was fantastic. He did such a good job. And Netflix did not pick it up because the showrunner was no longer there. So I wouldn't if I was Netflix either. I wouldn't pick it up because you want to put the shows up of the people you're already paying, not, that you already have a deal with.
So it's all contractual stuff was getting tied into it.
Oh my God, it's crazy. So then I got it back from Netflix in July, I think. And then now I'm trying to make the movie, but we have a certain amount of time left on the option, agreement, unless it magically gets extended by the author and she allows that to make this movie, which I hope she does, because obviously I've done everything I can to make it happen.
So that's like the trials of being a producer. Like you just gotten into all the minutiae, all the drama of actually.
Very hard. It's a roller coaster. You're just 1 minute you're like, yes, I have a show on Netflix, and then you're like, oh fuck, I don't.
Have you ever thought of making a documentary about the process?
The last documentary I made, I think killed me, and I vowed I would never direct a documentary again unless it was a 30 by 30.
So, no interest in that.
Where there's like an actual event to sport, because I ended up following a court case for 7 years, and that was just very depressing and too much.
That's too much, yeah. But so you've got like so many hats you've worn in different areas of the art, and from film to TV to like streaming TV. And you said like when you did the TV show that it was filmed like a film. So
yeah.
Was it like just like an 8-hour film?
No, because it was half hour. It was 9 episodes, half hour. But what we did that was unique, so we made 9 episodes for $2 million, where most TV shows are $2 million an episode. So, and because they shoot per episode, right? So they're constantly shooting. So we basically block shot it, meaning like this location takes place in episode 2, 7, and 9. We're going to shoot out this location. So as an actor in the show, or even a director, because I was an actor and director in the show, also, you kind of have to skip around the story. And You do
Timelines bouncing around
episode
based on
2,
wherever you are.
this is going on in the kitchen, and then episode 9, this is going on in the kitchen. And so it was very risky, but it totally worked. Like if you watch it, which you can on Revry TV, it really looks gorgeous, and it just worked. Kathy Griffin's in it. Jeff Daniels. No, somebody. I should know. I forgot the name. You'll see it on the trailer.
Revry is the channel, and that's out there on. Everybody can just download it from their app on their phone,
free. Yeah,
or on their smart TV, because everybody's got smart TVs
once
now.
all 9 episodes are done, then it'll go to like Apple or Amazon, where you can like buy the whole season or whatever.
Oh, you can buy the whole thing. So it's going out episode by it's episodic right now, right?
Right now, they're just dropping 1 episode every Tuesday. Now, I personally, the way I watch any TV now is I wait for at least 3 episodes.
Yeah, because I'm not quite binge watching, but you want a couple in the can. You want it in the can. You don't want to start something there's only 1 episode out.
Oh my God. I hate waiting for Severance. I can't believe I have to wait for episode 6 for like another 3 days. It's killing me.
I tend to be like, I wait till like all 16 are there. Like I watch a lot of K-drama. So I lived in Japan, and I got this taste for Eastern TV and film, and I just got drawn into it because I was living there, you know, and I just like a lot of the themes, you know, just the mysticism in the Eastern culture and the different cultural points of view. I just found was something I hadn't experienced. And it's like, why? Once I got sucked into it, I'm like, oh, I like it.
Did you watch Death Note?
Well, yeah, I watched tons of manga. Death Note I thought was so super interesting, and they tried to make like a live action version of it.
That was awful.
The animes usually exceed whatever they try to do live action because they can't get the feel of what the animators or the comic book artists, the manga artists actually did. They usually wreck it. They usually don't get it.
We have to figure out a way to really properly be able to do that. Like, and it's not working in the Disney movies either, I don't think.
Well, they tried to take Cowboy Bebop, and that was just a great piece of Japanese anime, and they tried to turn it to live action, and they just didn't do it right. They tried it, and they just didn't get the
been able to do with like Marvel or DC. There's, you know, we've been able to kind of create movies like that. So I think the real difference is the story is so much farther more interesting in Eastern culture than it is in Western culture. So our movies in Western culture from Marvel Comics, we just change the story.
Yeah.
Keep the characters. Whereas like you can't really do that with Death Note. Like you gotta.
Yeah, you really kind of have to take it like the Hobbit and actually do like to word like really stay in line with Tolkien's idea. Right, you got to really stay in line with a lot of these Japanese animators and a lot of these comic book guys like Tatsunoko, and the guy created like Astro Boy. Like if you got to stay in line with what their vision was, and you just think, well, I can just take the character and turn it into whatever. It's like no.
Yeah, I'm kind of trying to redo that or rework that with. I did a movie with James Gunn before he did Guardians of the Galaxy called Super. And Rainn Wilson was in it. And then Rainn and I have always wanted, there's a lot of animation stuff in that movie, and it's very funky. And we have been talking about making Super into an animated TV series. And obviously James Gunn would be an executive producer, but not that anybody can afford him now. But, you know, if we had the right writer, if we had the right, you know, pitch or whatever, it'd be great. But I do think we should go in the direction you're talking about, which is like, try and make it more like anime-esque in terms of tone.
Yeah, keep the tone, because the original tone of some of these properties, some of these like concepts.
His tone already. Well, have you seen Super by James Gunn?
Yeah, I see it.
It has its own kind of unique.
Yeah, that's kind of,
you know,
really
not the Marvel tone and not the DC tone. It's, you know,
his own thing. It's kind of like, you know, Invincible. It's got its own tone. You know, it's kind of like it was an Image comic, and they kept it kind of, well, that's totally animated, and it's really true to the comic. So the closer you can get it to actually match the vision, like
Yeah. Well, Rain said it would be, still the Crimson Bolt, and there's no reason that his sidekick can't be Elliot Page. I don't see why not.
Yeah.
I mean, unless he doesn't want to do it, but
yeah, I just love being able to take a story and not just think the characters don't, that the original story doesn't mean anything.
yeah.
Sometimes people take a property and they don't maybe serve it well.
I know. Oftentimes they don't. I think that was part of the Blake Lively, whatever his name is, issue with that book, right? But what I think is, and I don't know if you ever saw Heartburn or read Heartburn. That was Nora Ephron wrote the book based on her experience. And then she also wrote the movie. So I read the book and then watched the movie and was like, oh my God, they're completely different. And they're both so good. But only the author could
only the author can reinterpret the movie. Well, sometimes you realize like what you wrote in the book is for a reader, and a film goer is different than the reader, and maybe you adjust.
Changed, like the story, she changed how many kids she had. She changed locations. I was like,
it was made a cinematic vision where there's like something. She had a different view, maybe a different take on the story. Like Dylan used to change his songs. Like when he would play them live, he'd do Idiot Wind or anything from Blood on the Tracks. He'd actually rework them. And there's all these different versions of the songs. I've got this big catalog of his songs, and he has different characterizations, different sets of lyrics. And sometimes he would actually go out and play the non-album version live. And the band would be like, I didn't know you were doing that. You just do it. But he just felt like
doing this live with my tooth broken.
But yeah, I just think it's interesting. Sometimes the creator says, "Well, I'm gonna throw this version out because like this is what I feel like for this moment. It deserves this version of my vision."
I mean, Nora Ephron's one of the geniuses. Dylan's one of the geniuses. So, frankly, they can do no wrong.
Yeah,
unless they both sing at the same time. Probably not good.
So, what do people have to look forward to, like far out in the future? I know a lot of times you guys have a lot of projects. Do you want a project they want to reveal to the audience? Maybe.
Sure. We have, so there's a movie right now that has been nominated for 2 Spirit Awards called JAZZY, that my daughter is in, that came out last week, and you can get it on any television. It's playing at select theaters, and we're actually doing like kind of a premiere after the Spirit Awards, like the Monday after, but it's already been out, just came out. And then the TV show Unconventional came out. We had a movie at Sundance called By Design, which was an incredible experience making with Juliette Lewis, Raman Tooney, Mamadou Athi. I mean, just incredible. And so we're discussing where that's going to end up living. And then I'm directing a movie this year, and I'm acting in a movie this year. And then I'm still trying to get my Groucho Marx movie that I've been producing with Jeffrey Rush and Sienna Miller finished, because we started it and then it got shut down. And so now we've moved to Jersey and are still, trying to.
Wow, that's so another take.
That's been 10 years so far.
10 years trying to get that. So some of these projects, they just, I guess you just have to have the fire in the belly to keep them going.
Yeah, but By Design, I shot in July. It ended up at Sundance in January, and I'm selling it now. So it's kind of like they have their own life. They have their own. A movie is like an angel or an entity of its own, and it is going to tell you how it's going to happen, and what's going to happen. And you just got to.
Or the multi-year or the decade effort versus some happen. Like,
you just got to trust it's going to happen. And the only way it won't happen is if you quit. And there are very few projects I've quit on. And I did quit on a project last year that I had worked on for quite a while. And there was a bunch of companies' money in, but it just wasn't worth it. Time, love of the process wise.
Mm-hmm. So you just gotta, well, you know what you want to do and what you don't want to do. I guess if you're still passionate, you still feel for it. Sometimes some people have a piece of work and they just like take a dab at it and keep it on the shelf, keep it there, you keep on working on that painting, keep on working on that song, and 5 years later, it's like, oh, finally, it's out.
And you're like, nobody likes the painting. Shit.
Yeah, or the one that you like, no one likes, and the one you didn't like, everybody likes. So that we're not the best judge of our work.
It's Swiss Army Man. People love that or hate that.
Yeah, it's strange. Like, sometimes you're not the best predictor of your work.
I like making movies that no one else will make. Because they're too hard, they're too unique, their voices are too independent, they're too thoughtful, they're not easy. That is what I like to produce. Whereas my directing and my writing leans more typical entertainment
or commercial.
Or like Being Frank is very palatable for entertainment audiences. But I also got to express myself about my own feelings with my parents' divorce, even though it's not about divorce. But, there's a way to express yourself. And I love that movie. And it's funny because when we premiered at South by Southwest, everyone was saying, James Gunn is not James Gunn. Jim Gaffigan's not a big enough star. And now he's huge.
Well, you never know. It's like the time it takes when you're working on these projects, the time continuum can shift.
Yeah. One thing I did with that movie when I premiered it at South by Southwest, because I kind of didn't have time to fully finish it, I took some of the reviews from South by Southwest and then used the criticism, the good and the bad, from the few reviews we got to recut some parts of the movie for the theatrical release of it that we did with Universal. And like, I personally really like constructive criticism. If someone doesn't like it and they tell me why, and it's not because he shouldn't have cheated on his wife. It's literally like, it felt too long, or this didn't make sense to me. Those things I can fix. I can't fix like
I hated it. And they don't tell you why they hate it.
I hated the fact that this movie was made.
Yeah. Well, that doesn't really give you that a lot to work with. Yeah, when I talk to writers that have the beta readers, or the people who really give them good input, and that actually makes them see something. Because you can get tunnel vision. You're working on something. You're a musician. You're somebody to have other people hear it. You put it in the car. You let somebody hear it. That it's like, oh, are they bopping to it or are they not? Or did they get it? Did they not get it? You put it out. Just to get people. Litmus test. You throw it out there because it's like you do need to get some type of feedback.
Yeah, you need fresh eyes on your art for sure. Yeah. Like my friend Devin Gummersall watched one of my cuts and I go, "What do you think?" He goes, "It's good, but if it isn't War and Peace, it shouldn't be more than 2 hours." And I was like, "Yeah, you're right." Okay, I guess it's almost been an hour now, so.
Yeah, it goes by quicker than we ever imagined. We try to.
That was very fast, very interesting conversation. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
Well, thank you. I want to let people know we have mirandabailey.com. If you click on that, I'm sure you can connect with all of the work you've done. Is that where you've got a link to like all the things that you're working on right now and stuff you've done in the past?
Yeah, you can pretty much find out everything about me on there, but no nudies.
Well, I thank you for being here tonight. It's been really great to hear all the work you're doing and stuff you're doing in the future and stuff that's out there right now. We do encourage people to check out your link. It's fully clickable. We've been live on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. We will be on all the other podcast platforms where you can listen to or watch a podcast, like Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, Amazon, Spotify Video Podcast, many more. By tomorrow, we'll send a landing page so people can just pick whatever platform they like. And we'll be out there in the world. It's out there in the world right now on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube.
Great. And I just want to just preemptively apologize to anyone I may have insulted.
Well, have a great night. And thank you for being here on the Family Electric Ghost podcast. Appreciate your time.
So much. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.